I must be special because I got clipped different. I don't understand why, but that's all right. I just do what I'm told. I want to begin, of course, by thanking everybody for being here. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I don't want to sound cliche or trite. The fact that each of you would take time out of your busy schedules, travel here to listen to us and to hear our stories means a ton to me, and I know it means a ton to every single person who has had the courage to come up here and share their stories. Thank you to Sandra for hosting and organizing this wonderful event, and thank you to all the sponsors that made it possible. When I got my topic, the emotional drain of coping with caregiving, I made a list of emotions, of feelings, of problems, of hardships that come from being a caregiver to somebody being treated for cancer. And I really just wanted to talk about these feelings, these emotions, these specific hardships. And I really didn't want to tell my story, to be totally honest with you. Other people have better stories than I do, and the last thing that I wanted to do was come up here and look like I was complaining or trying to give you just the story of my life. The last thing I want to do is come up here and complain about my life. But I realized two things. First, I have no qualifications to come up here and tell you about the emotional strain of caregiving without telling you my story. These are my only qualifications to be up here today. And so in order to demonstrate to you that I'm not just some random guy up here lecturing you, I wanted to share a little bit about my story. And then secondly, the reason I felt that I did ultimately need to share my story, even if in brief form, is it really illustrates a lot of the points that I had written out, a lot of the things I thought that would be worth mentioning to you that you may have forgotten or needed reminding of, or maybe things you never thought of at all when it comes to the emotional hardships of being a caregiver. My story really illustrates a lot of those things. And so if I didn't tell you something of my story, I feel like I would have missed a tremendous opportunity to give the illustrations of the hardships, the emotional strain of being a caregiver. So here's a little bit about who I am. The year was about 2015. We're going to jump in there. I seemed to have it all. I was a cop in Nashville, Tennessee. I had a beautiful wife with a great career, and I had 3 beautiful daughters, and they were about 2, 4, and 6 at the time. And we chose to uproot from Nashville, Tennessee, and move back out to California, which is where my family's from. So I got a transfer to the Concord Police Department there in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I was just starting with this new department when we found out that Lauren had stage 3 breast cancer. And when you have stage 3 breast cancer, they give you the idea that you're going to go through the treatments, you're going to be clean, you're going to be good to go. As you've already heard, nobody talks about the metastatic word. And so we did all the treatments that they recommended. And I tell you, it must have been an extremely aggressive form of cancer. I mean, it was an extremely aggressive form of cancer because we found out she had stage 3 breast cancer on a Thursday. She got her first infusion of chemotherapy on a Monday. So she endured 6 months of the chemotherapy. And during that time, she got so weak where she couldn't get out of bed some days. And there were whole months when she wasn't able to climb the stairs to go up to our bedroom. And because I had started this new job in a new department, I couldn't take any time off. I didn't have sick time. I didn't have vacation time to burn. And I needed to stay in the job. And so the only way we were able to make it work was I worked a weekend shift. So I would work Friday and Saturday and Sunday, 12-and-a-half-hour long shifts. and somebody from my family would come and stay with Lauren and the kids during the weekend. And then immediately on Monday morning, I would be full-time caregiver Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And not only was I caring for Lauren during that time, but I was doing all of the jobs that she would do, the housework and the cleaning and the cooking and the taking care of the kids and shuttling them back and forth to school. Then she had her double mastectomy. After the double mastectomy, she went into 3 months of daily radiation. She had a reconstructive surgery, and the reconstructive surgery led to major heart issues. She developed really bad problems with her heart that would just come out of nowhere. And through all those surgeries, it was a lot of caregiving. And then, even though we did everything we were supposed to do, they said, you should be good to go. You've done all the recommended treatments. And so I decided to pursue a lifelong dream of mine, and I started a PhD program. I figured I had already been doing 3 jobs, so I could probably, now that I was finished being a caregiver, I thought, I could begin a full-time school and continue working full-time as well. And it was after just 1 semester of classes in my doctoral program that we found out Lauren had a stage 4 diagnosis. And I'll tell you, I wanted to quit school so bad. School had been so hard my first semester, and now to have this crushing, terrible diagnosis, I thought, there's absolutely no way I can stay in school. And my wife, Lauren, pointed her finger in my face. She doesn't usually do this kind of thing, at least in my mind, when I replay it. She pointed her finger in my face. She said, you will not quit school. I don't know why this always choked me up. I guess because she was so selfless. But she said, you will not quit school because that will not be something else that cancer steals from us. That will not be something else that I allow cancer to take away from this family. Your schooling has been your lifelong dream, and I'm not going to let that be another thing that this damn disease takes from our family. She didn't say damn disease. I made that part up. But it sounded good at the time. And now, here we are. 3 years later, she's been doing very well. She's stable on her treatments, and I'm a doctoral candidate at the Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley. So this is where we're at now. Oh, thank you, guys. That's so nice of you. But that's my story. And here's the things that I want to highlight, kind of pull out of that, just to make you think about the emotional strain of being a full-time caregiver. First of all is the idea that it's like you're doing 3 jobs. I felt like I had my full-time job, then I had the full-time job of doing all the things Lauren would usually do, taking care of the kids and the cooking and all that stuff. And then I also had the job of a full-time nurse caring for her at the same time. It felt like I was doing 3 jobs. And especially with that job of being a nurse, being a caregiver for her. As one person brilliantly said, it's a job you never wanted and are grossly incompetent to do. And yet, we do it. On top of the 3 jobs, you're also scheduling and managing appointments. You have numerous doctors and oncologists and specialists and surgeons. You're making appointments for all of these different things. So scheduling becomes another incredibly draining task. Furthermore, you're walking alongside somebody and helping them to make life and death decisions all the time. You're sitting down and you're making these terribly difficult decisions over and over and over and over again. And I don't want to belabor this point because it's already been spoken of so eloquently by Robert and Sarah. They've already talked about that extremely well, so I don't want to belabor this point. But the emotional strain and stress of making these decisions over and over and over again is so difficult. It's so difficult. And then we get to what I call the paradox of caregiving. The paradox of caregiving. While you are doing all of these things, the scheduling, the chores, the caregiving, going to and from appointments, you're doing everything you can to help your partner. And yet, and here's the paradox, you feel so completely helpless, you feel so powerless that it hurts. And I don't think there's very many things harder, especially for somebody who's used to being able to fix things, to sit by and feel totally helpless and powerless. You're doing so many things, you're so busy, you're so stressed, and yet you feel completely powerless to help the person you love. You want nothing more in the world than to see her cured, than to see her healed. You want nothing more in the world than to take away her pain, and yet you're completely and utterly powerless to do that. And that is an emotional strain that I think only a caregiver can understand. And finally, and the worst part, is the despair that comes with being a full-time caregiver, especially with a stage 4 metastatic breast cancer wife. You constantly are forced to think every day, no matter what you're doing, questions like, is this my life forever? Will I always be drained like this, physically, emotionally, spiritually? Will I be drained like this for the rest of my life? Is this going to end in the death of my loved one? And if it does, how can I possibly move on? Will I be able to carry on my life after that happens? In conclusion, the answer to coping with these emotional drains is hope, and only hope. A caregiver cannot function without hope. And you can't be the person that your spouse needs unless you have hope. And hope must be found in faith. And I'm not using the word faith here in a religious sense, although I am a religious person. But each caregiver must find their own faith that gives them hope. Faith that you're strong enough for the tasks at hand. Faith that your loved one can and will be healed. Faith that you are able, you're capable of giving them the best life that they can have. Faith that you'll be able to move on and carry on with your life after they're gone. You have to find your own faith that gives you hope in order to survive being a caregiver, and in order to be the person that your spouse needs you to be. And as a community, all of us that together supports cancer patients and caregivers alike, it's all of our responsibility to understand these emotional strains of caregiving. And it's all of our job to help caregivers and patients alike find the faith and hope that they need to move forward. The first step in this is to understand a piece of what they might be going through. And I hope that I've given that to you today. Thank you very much.